Welcome, everybody. Here with the Star Wars Collector Spotlight, and I got here Derrick here, my main man. We are going to chat all things Star Wars, and we're going to hear all things about his opinions on all things Star Wars. And hopefully, if you guys collect Star Wars yourself, we will find out if Derrick is somebody you want to reach out to, or maybe Derrick's looking for something. We're going to find all things about it. Derrick, welcome to Star Wars Collector Spotlight. I know we've chatted offline, and I know you're involved in the Star Wars collector group, graded group. So I'm just going to start off really basic for those who do not know you. Where do you hail from, and what are you primarily collecting?
I originally hail from Medina, Ohio, which is just south of Cleveland, Ohio, if anyone knows where it's at. But I live in actually Lexington, Kentucky now, due to where life takes you and travel and work and all that stuff. So live in Lexington, going to be already be 10 years next April, which is crazy to sound already. Been living here. Enjoy the weather. It still gets all 4 seasons. I work, pretty much a travel job 50% of the time. So when I'm not out traveling for work, I enjoy spending time with my wife and my daughter. And then besides that, when I get a little bit of free time, for those of us that are parents and know when you get a little bit of free time, you like to hang out with your friends, play video games, play card games, board games, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or for us, we like to talk about Star Wars, right? So I do a little
Right.
bit of a thing called What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with some friends. So those that like to just listen to a bunch of friends talk Star Wars, we hit all spectrums. We try to keep it pretty positive, even though we are critical on some of the things that Star Wars has done in the past, as well as some of the more recent stuff. But we do enjoy it, and we have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of laughs, and hopefully our listeners enjoy us. So.
Yeah, I have listened to some dissenting opinion on some episodes from Mandalorian stuff, so I'm familiar with these chats. Please leave the link to that, of course, so anybody else can find that when they do find this video. So Star Wars collecting. So let's get right to the juice and meat here on the bone. Uh, is it just Star Wars cards? What other Star Wars things are you collecting in general? Um, what's drawn you to that? What are you focused on, really?
I've pretty much dabbled in everything for Star Wars. I mean, lately it's been kind of rekindled with the CCG, with COVID and stuff like that. Obviously, that kind of brought back the opportunity to kind of deep dive back into. Even though I've had my collection for years, I never truly finished it. When I got into college, Endor
Right.
was out, Death Star 2 was out, and I was getting into other card games at the time. So I never got to finish the set. So I kind of been doing that. Still on the hunt for just a few more cards before completing, what you consider a complete set from Premiere to Reflections 2. Or I guess Reflections 3, but not the foils and stuff like that for Reflections 2 and 3. But anyways, do that. I like to do a little bit of the merchandise. So I do t-shirts specifically a lot, especially from like Turtle Tea or Tea Public, where they have all those funny little chibi looking characters with funny
Yeah.
slogans and stuff. So
Okay.
Facebook knows how to logarithm me pretty well. So I pick up that. And then I also dabble a little bit in some of the other stuff. With my daughter, we've had a few things. She loves Baby Yoda or Grogu. So we do that. The new show Young Jedi Adventures just came out. They haven't seen a whole lot of merchandise from that just yet. But there's a chance that as my daughter continues to go into it, she loves everything from Disney princesses to Spidey and his amazing friends and Jedi stuff. So she's pretty diverse. And then I've got a little bit of the Star Wars Legos recently, specifically some of the larger sets and stuff like that. And then just little things here and there.
Okay. Yeah, Star Wars Legos are no joke. Like some of those are pretty expensive. I have maybe I didn't even realize I had some from way back in the day. I have like
Mm,
Y Wings, X Wings, TIE Fighter, Slave One, ATST walkers, some of those episode one droid tanks. I'm like, this probably wasn't that expensive then, but if you want to get it now, like it
yeah.
costs a lot, like maybe like $500, like plus, I mean a
Yeah.
Millennium Falcon, like talk about the super expensive stuff, you know, like full Star Destroyer. Like, good
Yeah,
God.
it's like $1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like breaking the bank. It's like pay the mortgage or buy this Lego set. You know, basically is what it
Well,
comes
I
down.
was fortunate. I haven't been able to put it together yet just because I haven't had the time. And my daughter's been actually very into Super Mario Brothers. So we've deep dived pretty well into the Lego Super Mario, which is pretty cool
Funny.
because you could actually play the character and it's like little digital scan codes and it goes to the app and all that stuff. But that's a whole nother IP. So we'll stick it to Star Wars. But I've got my wife picked up for me a couple, I don't know if it was last Christmas or 2 Christmases ago at this point. It's all blurry. But I have the Moss Eisley Cantina special edition one that was like $350. The
Okay.
huge, I can pull it up here. It's still in the box. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to build it yet. And then I've got like the newer sets they came out with that are kind of like thematic scenes. I've got the
Right.
Dagobah Yoda training hut where like half of the Y Wing is, in the swamp, and you've got Yoda and Luke Skywalker training in the jungle there
That's
with
awesome.
Yoda's hut. So it's a pretty cool thing. I've got a few of the helmet busts, right? I've got the Darth Vader, Boba Fett
Okay.
busts, stuff like that. So so yeah, a lot pretty, a lot of older stuff too, but yeah, a lot of the newer Lego stuff. Like I said, something that piques my interest, I'll get it.
Yeah, you can tell they're clearly targeting the adult audience here, like the millennial audience who like grew up with this stuff as kids and are now older, but they still want to play with their toys. Like, essentially, that's the big piece of the market there. So I think we already talked a little bit about how you got back into collecting, but on a scale of 1 to 10, like how emotionally invested are you into your collection of Star Wars things?
um, well, for the amount of money I spent, I'm pretty 11 up there, right? But but
Well,
obviously, I
there's
mean,
the money part, but if you could sell it and
yeah.
you didn't care about selling it, then maybe you weren't that invested into it emotionally, right?
Well, it depends, right? Because I'm also a huge Star Trek fan, right? And I also do quite a bit with the Star Trek CCG, also made by Decipher, right? I'm actually part of on the design team. I've done some of the more recent sets that came out over the past few years from the continuing committee, players committee, whatever you want to call it, right? That continues the
Right.
virtual cards. And they allow all their stuff to be virtually printed now, which
Mm,
is different than the players committee, which you have to play with the physical cards, and if you want to use the virtual cards, you have to have the slips. Well, once that happened, I sold my entire Star Trek CCG set. Even though I love Star Trek, I keep a few things, and I pretty much had almost a complete set, master set of everything from that. But I
right.
sold it because one, it was like a year after COVID, so prices were pretty peak. Not quite as some of them are now. I probably could have doubled what I got for it just a couple years ago already, but but I again, it wasn't anything I was super attached to. But it had been something I'd collected over the past 10, 15 years of re-engaging Star Trek. But like I said, I enjoy playing games more than just collecting. Now, Star Wars, on the other hand, I really enjoy the collecting. So I probably wouldn't sell the stuff unless if it was obviously some price I couldn't beat, to forecast it. But again, I'm not looking for my actual collection to make money, right? The extra stuff
Right.
that I'm not using to play, yeah, sure, I'll flip it and make a buck, right? Nothing hard with that. But my actual sets and my collections of stuff, it'd be pretty hard for me to really get rid of it. If I get rid of other games and stuff, it's usually anything that's pretty much non Star Wars and or non Shadowrun, because that's
Okay.
another
So,
IP.
would we say that's a safe 8
I would say
out of 10?
probably a nine,
A
probably
9?
even right
Okay.
nine. So
Okay. So, in a nutshell, what is your collecting goal at the moment, Star Wars wise?
Star Wars wise, definitely
You could
trying
say short
to
term or long term if you want to do
yeah,
both.
short term, it's definitely trying to put together the well finish up a couple of the CCG sets. Like I said, I have a couple of cards I'm still missing, and I just been kind of back and forth. I'll get into those moods where it's like for 3 months straight, all I'll focus on is Star Wars CCG. I'll do everything I can, and then I'll
Right.
take off because then I'll get something else interested, or my daughter will get me interested in something.
Right.
So that would probably be it. Like I said, I'm missing a few cards. Long term would be great if Asmodee, who did the Star Wars Legion miniature games. I don't know if you're familiar with Legion or not. But I would really love it if at some point in the next year or two, which maybe is not necessarily long term, but long enough, where they would come out with the commanders and operatives for the Phoenix Squad. So they released Sabine. They just did Ahsoka recently, and so I'm hoping eventually with the Ahsoka series coming out, we'll get a Hera. And then maybe they'll backlog, and especially since we saw Zeb in the Mandalorian, so maybe we'll get more Zeb as well. And then they'll finish up with a Chopper is either part of a solo, or with the Hera set in a companion type deal like they've done with some of the other droids. So, and then obviously getting Kanan and Ezra would be pretty cool too. So to kind of finish that Phoenix Squadron, where it'd almost be its own little isolated team. Rather than having to have like a couple of the main characters and then like a bunch of like no name, rebel soldiers and stuff. So,
right. All right. Well, let's get into our Star Wars Blitz questions. And these are meant to be kind of short and sweet. So don't overthink.
Yep, you got it.
All right. So what is your all-time favorite Star Wars movie and why?
The Empire Strikes Back. And need I say more?
Okay. Who's your favorite Jedi and what qualities make them stand out for you?
It's kind of a toss-up because Ahsoka, but she's not a Jedi technically,
right?
So I'd have to say Qui-Gon.
She was Jinn. At one time, so we should.
She was a Jedi in training, yes, but she'll tell you, right? I'm no Jedi, but I would say Qui-Gon Jinn just because it's Liam Neeson, but also because he if you follow kind of where they've gone with him, and obviously what they've done more recently with like Dooku. And like the Jedi Chronicles, I think it was, or the Jedi Tales, whatever, right?
Right.
That side stuff, understanding where Qui-Gon was and all that. So, really almost to the point where he could have gone some, dark side stuff, but he didn't. So Qui-Gon.
Understandable. What lightsaber color would you choose for yourself and why?
Well, the dark saber is pretty cool, but I typically pick green for the lightsaber. Blue is my favorite color, but I like the green just because it stands for defensive and guardian of the people. So,
okay. What's your favorite starship in the Star Wars universe, and what appeals to you about it?
Let's see here. The Ghost is pretty cool, and obviously, the Pride and True Millennium Falcon. So,
okay. The Ghost, that's an interesting answer. What made that appealing to you?
I just like it, one, because it has the mini ship that comes from it, right? The Phantom.
Okay.
And the Phantom 2. So that's kind of cool, right? When you need to, not just an escape pod, but a whole nother ship, right?
Right.
But no, just I'm a huge, Rebels and Phoenix Squadron fan from the newer stuff over the past, 15 years. Really thought that's been some of the best Star Wars storytelling. That they've come out with. So, and I just really like the ship. I think it's a cool looking ship. And it's kind of the family home type thing, right? Where it's like you can actually they spend a good chunk of time there, so you get to feel a bit more, unlike the movies and other shows. Now, obviously, we had the Razor Crest too, but that, rest in peace, pour one for your home.
Yeah, right. Okay. If you could have any force power, which one would you choose, and how would you use it?
Well, my superpower is always I love to fly. But so I guess I'd be as close to my Jedi power, but actually I probably would say if you played the I can't remember the name of the ability, but if you played the MMORPG, the Old Republic Star Wars video, PC game, the Jedi counselor had like their Force Wave push power. So that one's pretty cool. Where it was like the Sonic Wave type deal thing.
What are you going to be pushing?
Whatever I wanted to. I could even push myself if I wanted to, so I could jump really high, right? But I could push as a defense or an offense move, whatever I needed to do, right? So
okay. Which Star Wars planet would you most like to visit, and what draws you to that particular location?
Probably because when I retire, I want to be either at the Smoky Mountains or the Blue Ridge Mountains. So probably Kashyyyk. Just because it's the woods and the jungles. Endor's okay, but Endor has a lot of like deadly giant creatures, especially if you know Ewok Caravan of Courage and the Battle for Endor. There's a lot of like death stuff on Endor. So Kashik's not that they don't have giant spiders and stuff, but at least those spiders seem to be a bit more friendly. So I'd definitely go with Kashyyyk.
Okay, all right, good choice. Who's your favorite Star Wars villain, and what makes them such a compelling character?
Hmm. Well, I mean, obviously Mara Jade is up there, but is she a villain? Is she, a good guy? Obviously, she turns more if you stick with the legends. But probably my favorite villain is Thrawn. So I'm super excited, that Mars Mickelson's getting to play the live action. We're going to get that here with Ahsoka. So Thrawn's always been, because he's that tactical, quiet, always thinking, 2-3 steps ahead type deal, kind of that Nick Fury type deal, but a bad guy, right? But he
Yeah,
still has a code, right, of honor.
I think there was a. I think it was. I think they relied a lot on Legends lore of Thrawn's intelligence when they kind of used him in Rebels in a lot of ways. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to present his brilliance or demonstrate his true, you know, dangerous mastery, right, of understanding these people in this show. So I'm really hoping they capitalize on that, because it was a lot of times like, oh, the rebels destroyed this Imperial base. Like, yes, that was all part of the plan. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't really like show you how smart he is. It's just like, okay, you don't want to have
Yeah.
like a smart ass moment. You want to see like a buildup of something that was like well orchestrated and like, oh snap, this guy's smart. Like,
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get some of those moments, because it'll make him as a villain that much more compelling. You know how like totally going in the Marvel universe, right? But like Thanos kind of like saw a lot of things coming, or understood how certain people would act, and was able to, work around that. So it
Yeah.
was like, this guy's not only dangerous and violent, but he's actually really intelligent. Um,
Yeah.
so I hope they do that. I'm really looking forward to it too. What droid from the Star Wars saga do you find the most endearing, and why?
Most enduring? Well,
Yeah.
it got to be IG-11/12, right? Because he's holding Baby Yoda
Okay.
Grogu now, right? So, but
You like the
probably
11 variety or the 12 variety more? Yes. Yes.
yes, yes.
No.
Well,
No.
11 because he was his
No.
own, 12
Yes.
he was just a shell. But to be fair, probably my real answer would probably be R2D2. Just classic R2, not Clone Wars or Attack of the Clone version where he's got rockets and we started that whole thing. Just original R2, snarky, all that stuff. K2SO is pretty good too, just because it's voiced by Alan Tudyk. But I would say R2D2 is my favorite, just because he's actually the true hero of Star Wars.
It's interesting, like R2 as a character in and of himself is very like, oh, like warm and fun and like comical, but somebody like an IG-11 or even a K2, like, it's not like what they are in of themselves, like, cute, adoring, fun, lovable, or like, emotional, but like the things they do, or like how they were programmed to go about doing it, really impacted the people around them so profoundly, because it really was like, wow, like they're, going above and beyond what would be expected if you were to ask like, a friend or a family member or like a brother in arms, right? Like, they're going out doing the dangerous things, making the heroic sacrifices, making the key plays, but like acting like it's almost nothing, but to everybody around them, like they're literally like a savior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a different way of looking at it, where R2, you just look at him, you're like, oh, R2, you're so fun, haha. But it's like, you wouldn't normally say that to like a K2 or IG-11, right? They just do things that are like, wow. you know what is your favorite lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars franchise, and what makes it special?
Well, the classic, just because it's an Empire Strikes Back. Obviously the Return of the Jedi was a little bit better, but I just liked how you have a young Jedi in training having to use like both hands, and Vader's just toying with him, right, with this single-handed lightsaber duel. But probably my favorite, though, just because the music is so epic, is Duel of the Fates from Phantom Menace. That is still the highlight, because when that came, I got the opportunity to see the special edition, when those came to theater, right? So that was the first time I ever got to see Star Wars in a theater as a kid. But when Phantom Menace came out, I know it still gets a lot of flack, but I still have a soft spot for it because I just remember, especially with the original, or I shouldn't say the original, but the first three movies of episodes 1, 2, and 3 when they came out in the 99, and after into the early 2000s, you know, having to actually go and wait in line to get tickets and then actually having to stand in line the night of at midnight. And my dad and I used to do that. And so it's got a bit of nostalgic to it because you just don't do that anymore, right? You can just pick your
Right.
theater ticket. You can do it,
Reserve your seat.
two
Yeah.
weeks to 2 months in advance when, pre-ticket sales come out, pre-release,
Yep.
which I'm okay with, right? I mean, I like the
It
lounge
is
chairs. I
better
like getting
long term for sure. Yeah.
but you just don't get that camaraderie because you'd have people dressed up, right?
Right.
Not to say that people still don't do that in some of the big premiere events and stuff like that, but you just don't have 300-400 people literally standing outside a movie theater wrapped around waiting and basically first come first serve for whatever theater you're going to, and that's when you run in there right as a mob, just like Black Friday deals, right? And first one to get your seats. So I'd always go in because I was smaller than my dad. My dad was a 6'2" guy, so he would go and go get the snacks and the drinks, and I would run and go get us our seats.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
but
that's a good point. It does kind of bring back some memories that way, the way you saw it. But the scale of Duel of the Fates is really, I mean, in Revenge of the Sith, they did a pretty good choreographed fight, right? But Duel of Fate, like it's such a grand fight. Like it's just so they have these far, like zoom outs, right? And you're in this like huge energy hallways, right? And it's just
the music. It's the music.
The music is absolutely stellar. Even if you're not crazy about episode 1, like it is fantastic. Some of the best music in Star Wars, period.
If you really want actually the best duel, I have a friend who's comes on our podcast from time to time, but he also does the Highlander podcast. But he's a true stuntman, and he knows like how to like use swords and weapons and all that stuff. Knows people in Hollywood and all that, and has worked on many films that have won like Fight of the Year for a lot of these indie festivals. And he will tell you the best fight duel now to date is in episode, was it 4 or 5 for the Obi-Wan series, where they have at the beginning Ewan McGregor and Christian Hayden doing the new duel, right, where they're like pre-episode 3, where they're dueling each other, the flashback. That is actually the best duel that they've had, just because of actually the person, I can't remember the one he likes to rip on that did episodes 1 through 3. He calls him a hack for the stuntman trainer and all that stuff, but they got somebody new and actually knows it. I think it's actually the guy who did the stunts for John Wick. If I recall, for the knife fights, for the close-up knife fights in John Wick 2. I think that's the same one that did the Obi-Wan thing. And it's pretty stellar, right? If you recall that. So that's actually technically, if you want to go by by actual, legit sword fighting, it's that one. But like I said, mine is still Duel of the Fates, just because of that, and then the classic Bespin Cloud City fight.
Well, I can tell you, like, probably one of the least exhilarating ones is in the sequel trilogy, where they take out Snoke, right? It's like, you look at the Praetorian Guards; they're all kind of like doing this funny dance, and you're like, "What is this?" Like, if you
it was almost like episode 1 stuff where they're just trolling around, but they didn't have Ray Park doing it, so it wasn't as cool.
No, if you look at it in slow mo, you're like, "What are they doing?" Anyways, let's not go there. If you were to join Rebel Alliance or Galactic Empire, which side would you choose and why?
Well, you basically, at what point in time is this? is this fresh right after the Clone Wars and episode 3, or is this towards the end after A New Hope? Which one am I joining at what period of time? So, but honestly,
nobody's asking that,
but honestly, if it would be, I'd want to join the Rebel Alliance, just because they do have cooler, like actual like starfighters. like the X-wings, the A-wings, the Star Cruisers and stuff like that. I mean, obviously a Star Destroyer is phenomenal, but you don't really get to pilot that as so much. And a TIE fighter is kind of cool, but I don't know. This seems so much more flimsy than the X-wing, right? So I'd rather join with them. And like I said, that I could fly the Falcon, I could fly, Ghost, I could go on an X-wing, all the cool stuff.
If it were like a TIE Defender or like a TIE Phantom, that would be badass. But yeah, other than that, I think you're right. Who's your favorite non-human character in Star Wars, and what about them resonates with you?
Well, non-human would probably be, like I said, Ahsoka, just because she's one of my top 3 favorite characters. Just because she's had so much character growth, I mean that really helps. To be fair,
Did
she's
you like her
probably.
when she was Snips? When
Oh
she was
yeah, I mean, well, obviously, did you like the Clone War movie or not? Right? If you got past that and you actually watched the Clone Wars, then yes, you get past it season 1, because season 1s are always bad in most instances, unless if you're the phenomenal, like a few things like Stranger Things and some other stuff, right? But for the most part, season 1s are pretty rough. But even then, halfway through, you're like, hey, this character can snap back. And Anakin with Sky Guy and some of the other stuff, right?
yeah.
So there's some good stuff in there, right? So, but as she's developed, as like I said, it's a Turgado, probably her. And then again, if you don't want to count the Mandalorians as humanoids, then I would definitely say Sabine's probably my favorite. But I guess she'd be classified as a human. So
Fair enough. What's your favorite line or quote from Star Wars films, and why does it resonate with you?
Mm, probably let's see. Well, I mean, the most iconic ones, are always good. I like to tease my wife from time to time with "I love you" and "I know stuff." Um, it's probably. I mean, if you're looking for a single phrase, like a,
Well,
a, a quote,
give me a
or
short scene too, if you want.
yeah, probably. Well, to me, the most best dialogue, like I told you, in my opinion, has come from some of the best storytelling's been from Rebels. And one of my favorite scenes is the training between Kanan and Sabine, when he's showing her how to work the dark saber. And he's toying with her, he's pushing her, she's doing that, and talking to her about the family and all the burden she's been carrying, and just everything from that, in that few minutes scene, is just weighs a lot, and I really like it. It's a really good scene. So that would probably be one of my favorite scenes. But
Well, she
I
ends up winning that in the end, right?
she
Doesn't she?
does, right? She
The
gets
player.
him, right. She does get him at that point. But probably, I mean, some of my favorite stuff is the Ewok stuff, right? The Yub Nub and all that. So, and obviously Yoda speak is always fun too, right? When he's talking and is weird. So, um,
All right.
so
If you could have a mentor from the Star Wars universe, who would you choose, and what wisdom would you seek from them? I think I know your
uh,
answer already, but no.
well, it'd probably be Qui-Gon, just because he's my favorite Jedi. But I'd almost, but I feel like, but who trained Qui-Gon would have been Dooku, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like that would have that probably would have been a lot cooler to me than just doing Qui-Gon. Because with Qui-Gon, then you end up having to get him killed and stuff like that. So with Dooku, he just turns bad. So
Yeah.
so, but Quinlan Voss would be pretty cool too. Just because he's kind of that ranger slash tracker type deal Jedi. So you
Right.
probably have some pretty cool side quests to go with Quinlan Voss, because you'd be going around like tracking down people and stuff. So,
Hmm.
and doing some underworld stuff. So
Okay. That'd be cool. Um, I think I already know this, but what is your favorite Star Wars spin-off or standalone film from the Disney era, and why? I
it's
assume we
not
talked about
Rebels.
Rebels, right?
It's not Rebels though. It's Rogue One.
Rogue One. Okay.
And that's my favorite movie, and Andor is actually my favorite series.
Okay.
Even
Okay.
more than that. I mean, Andor is Star Wars to the next level, just because it doesn't deal with Jedi. doesn't deal with the Force. It has nothing to do with it. It is just purely the political struggles, all that stuff, about the actual people, the common day person, and what they're having to deal with, and how those people are standing up for what they believe is wrong, right, with the Empire, and having that dictatorship type deal. So that to me is actually my favorite series so far. I was already calling it, because everybody was back on Star Wars with the Mandalorian, after the past couple of seasons.
Right.
But I was already calling Andor after episode 4 the best Star Wars show ever. So
They have, I mean, they have some of the best like dialogue scenes, like hands down, like that we've seen even from regular TV shows. Even if it wasn't Star Wars, would still be like really impactful. Like I mean, The Mandalorian had Vernon Herzog, right, for like a hot
I
second.
went to
That
see
was
the
cool,
baby.
but like here we are with like Andy Serkis, like in that escape scene. Here we are with Stellan Skarsgård, right? I mean, that monologue, like underground or wherever the heck he was.
Yeah, the elevator shaft.
I was like jaw dropped, like with that. Like that was just crazy. Like I'm gonna fight for a sunrise I'll never get to see. It was like,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, yeah, I mean, if it doesn't win best drama, I really don't know what would, because there's nothing that's been better the past year. And really, like I said, nothing. I mean, some people will say like some Game of Thrones and some other things and stuff like that, and maybe a couple other. But like you said, the Tony Gilroy, I don't know if you follow much of the MCU or not, but I was saying this, and I've been saying it for the past few episodes with Secret Invasion. I'm like, they should have got Tony Gilroy to write Secret Invasion. So.
It would be a totally different like scenario. It'd be like turning into Born Identity, stuff.
Yeah, it'd be like
shadows. Everyone's suspect, right? Like there's crazy ops going on all the time.
Which is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
with the Skrull invasion, but yeah, it's.
But let's
not that I hate it. I don't hate it. I don't hate
it. We're spinning away. What Star Wars species or alien race do you find the most fascinating, and why?
Probably the Wookiees are pretty cool, just because like with one of the more recent episodes we got from Bad Batch, season 2, right there, right when they visit Kashyyyk. And they have to, I can't remember the name of the little Padawan Wookiee Jedi that they rescue and have to bring his. Nathan's gonna hate me for this if he watches this, but anyways, yeah. So that, just because again, I think they're pretty, kind of that ritualistic herbal witch doctor, people of the earth type deal, but still like badasses when it comes to like fighting and doing, what's right and stuff. So they're not just gonna sit to the wayside and just be like, well, it's just, let nature run its course. No, they actually try to help where they can.
Okay. What is your favorite lightsaber design or hilt style, and what attracts you to that particular design?
I like Ahsoka's dual lightsabers. With the Shito lightsaber type deal. So I like that, with the smaller blade and then the bigger blade, dual blades. So
yeah, it's pretty unique. It's pretty cool. If you were hired to act in the next Star Wars movie or show, what would you want your character to be like?
Andor. Cassian Andor.
Cassian. Okay. Yeah, I don't think anybody said that yet. Who's your least favorite Star Wars character, and what specifically don't you like about them?
Probably Snoke, just because he was so underutilized.
Oh my god, completely underutilized. I'm like, what was even the point of him?
Yeah. So,
but
had potential, but then was nothing, right? So
that we could go off the deep end with the sequels, anyway. So, who is your favorite bounty hunter in the Star Wars galaxy, and what qualities make them stand out for you?
I've always been fascinated with the Trandoshans, kind of like how they're like predators, right? Where they go by the trophies and all that stuff. So probably Bosk would probably be my favorite. Next, I mean, obviously Boba Fett was always the coolest prior to the Book of Boba Fett. So I mean, I still liked it, but it was obviously, they made Boba a bit more of a bumbling idiot than they should have, instead of the badass that we.
The Mandalorian should have been Boba Fett. But they did.
I mean, that would have been cool too.
They needed to go a different direction, right?
So,
Which Star Wars moment has the most emotional impact on you and why?
Probably the end of episode 3 of Andor, when they're just finished off doing the basically lockdown of Cassian and Skarsgård's character. Now that it's escaping me his character's name, and all those security guards are there, and the two of them are riding off, and the music that they're playing, and it's kind of having the flashbacks between Cassian when he was the kid, right, and Marva was rescuing him, and he's having that whole um, portion where it's kind of doing the flashback where it was, this person taking him off from his what's been his home up to this point and taking him off to potentially be somewhere in a better life, is just something that was very touching, just because the moment that they led up to, in those first 3 episodes, in that arc, and again, the music is just phenomenal in that series. So yeah, I'd say that probably is probably one of the more recent ones, that I've really been like, I'll go back and just watch that last 10 minutes of that episode probably every couple of months, just because it hits so hard.
Yeah, I need to do a complete rewatch of Andor myself. 'Cause it just kind of hit me like a lot, and I was like, "This, I almost need to swallow this, digest this, like, and go back to this because it was a lot to take in." Um, who is your favorite Rebel Alliance member, and what inspires you about their dedication to the cause?
Probably Hera, just because of what all the stuff the Twi'leks have had to deal with. The fact that, she's been involved in the war since the Clone Wars, right, with her father and all the things. She still
Mhm.
continues to go down that path and fight for what's right. Just because, again, her people have always been enslaved. So going through that, the fact that she had her husband slash boyfriend, whatever you want to call Kanan, ripped from her, which is another emotional scene if you want to go through that, when he's
Yeah,
at the end there and he gets his vision right before he dies. Oh, it gets me every time. And then who knows what we'll get from Ahsoka, right, with Elizabeth
right.
Olsen, not Elizabeth Olsen, Elizabeth Weinstead, playing her. So it'll be interesting to see what more with that. But I would definitely say Hera. Really, what we could have gotten more if we would have ever gotten Princess Leia stories with Carrie Fisher, especially since that
Yeah.
was a dropped bomb in the sequel trilogy. So
Yeah. Again, back with the sequels, right? Let's switch back to collections here. So, what is your most prized Star Wars collectible?
um my most prized.
Yeah, which one do you like the most?
um Well, my wife does cross stitching, and she made me a wampa. So that one's pretty cool, just because she's like, she asked me what I wanted, and I told her. But probably my most prized. I mean, let's be honest, it's probably the most common thing that anyone's ever says here is a premier black border Darth Vader, just because it is like
Yeah.
the quintessential thing that people think of when you say Star Wars CCG. Like you could say it's not the best card. There's obviously been better cards that came out even of
The most
himself,
rare card, I guess. Yeah.
but he is probably the pinnacle of all that. And then after that, I have some really cool custom stormtrooper sneakers that I had made. And
Ooh,
then I have a
very.
really cool Sabine and Ahsoka Funko Pops that are pretty cool.
Oh boy, yeah, I haven't touched the Funko Pop craze. I don't.
I have maybe about 20, a mixture between of some wrestlers, Marvel characters, some anime, and then Star Wars.
Okay, so if you could have any one collectible item, like, ever from Star Wars, what would it be? Like, even if it was hypothetical or something,
All
what
right, so
would
this
that be?
this one's just going to be a couple minute story. So
Okay.
this one, because this could have been mine, but it never was, right? And this to me would be really cool, but I think it's a cool story. So If you, most people have heard of PBS, right? Public Broadcasting
Sure.
Services, the old channel, right? Um, Back in, I don't know when it started, but I would say at least in the late 80s till probably the late 90s, our local version of the Akron Cleveland PBS, they would have a 2-week stint where they did what they would call the PBS auction. People would donate stuff to, literally just donate it to the local station, and they would do a auction of these items that they would have, right? And they used to have the big
Okay.
chalkboards, and it'd be like things, and you would have to actually call in. Like if you see something, you'd have to write down like the 7-digit number, call in, place your bet, and then they would go back and every so often would go back to show you how the bids were going, and that was it. And you eventually would have to, hopefully you win after the kind of, I mean, you'd see it, but you would
Right.
put in enough things. So my dad had a surprise for me. And this was probably 96, 97, right? So
Okay.
I'm in high school and stuff like that, young high school. And so we go and we're waiting in line to go pick up our item. We waited like 2 hours. And what we were supposed to get was an original 1977 C3PO Minton, his package of the action figure, right? The old Kenner toys, right?
Okay.
But what was so unique about this one was that the little punch that they used to punch out, where you would stick the um, the rack, the little wire racking where they would hang up the toy on the shelves, was not there. It was completely solid. So it was a unique piece because it literally came straight from the manufacturer. It never went to retail with it. So
Okay.
it was just a true mint in box back placard, card. It didn't have the punch in it, right? So one of a kind, or very rare you'd ever find one of these types of
Wow.
Star Wars toys, right? So and at this point, it's 20 years old, right? So my dad paid like $300 for it, right? Well, we got there, we waited in line for like 2 hours. We finally came up, so my dad's my name, the number, blah blah blah. They were supposed to,
Right.
show ID, and the guy goes back there and brings it back. Well, the one that they showed was the figure, but it was like in a plastic bag, like a clear plastic bag, but it was in it. This one was like in a hard plastic sleeve, like one of those ones specially made for action figures and stuff. And it actually had the punch in it. So some a-hole went, saw that that worked at the PBS, and went out and bought another one and swapped it. So
Oh,
that I never got, because now, I mean, it would obviously be worth quite a bit of money, because the one alone right now, in 1977 mint action C3PO, it's like worth $1,000. But imagine almost a one of a kind with the mint, backer card with no punch in it.
so they never like. I mean, so did you get that one? Did you
No,
take?
we didn't pay it, because back then it was still high. It was probably still worth like $60-$70, but it wasn't worth no $300. So
Right. Were you like, this is a JIP?
yeah, no, we told them what it was. That wasn't the one that they were supposed to do. So the guy went back and double checked. He's like, I'm sorry, there's nothing else back here. So like I said, so either he never found it, and because somebody misplaced it, or I have a feeling, because that was the tag attached to it, was the lot number, right, that my dad had won. Like I said, somebody went in and swapped it out. So
Yeah.
that's kind
Super
of the
spicy.
story for that one. So sorry that took a little bit longer.
Wow, that's really sad and
It
disappointing.
sucks, but that would have been a really cool mint collectible. So
The one that got away.
the one that got away.
What is your biggest regret from your collecting journey?
Just like everybody else, not foreseeing what the amount of CCG is gone for, and all the sealed product that we either opened up, or stuff that we just passed by because, like, I don't need any more of that, right? Or I'm
Right.
kind of out of that. All the trips that I made to Gen Con in the mid 2000s and late 2000s, when that stuff was $30-$40 boxes, you could just buy it. Even with the Star Trek stuff. I mean, just think about that, right?
Oh, man.
So
I know.
you're just rubbing your head there.
I
You're like
know.
sweating bullets. Like
I
if
know. I'm
well,
literally sweating thinking about
I
How
think
what
about if I would have been able to that I did back with even a Black Lotus back then, just to pay $1,000 for a mint, gem mint 10 Black Lotus back then you could have gotten. And I mean, now it's worth, $200,000, right? Or even any of that sealed product from Magic. And I'm not a Magic guy. I mean, I've bought in some of the new Lord of the Rings Magic just because it's Lord of the Rings and it's cool and you kind of
Oh, you
self-contained
did
play
you
it.
did
But
buy some of those.
yeah,
Okay.
I bought some of it, and shout out to Matt for hooking me up with a collector's bundle because Amazon canceled my pre-order, so he hooked me
Ooh.
up with one. Yeah, just those types of things that you think about. It's like but like here, you can think about maybe in 30, 40 years, these collector edition Magic, Lord of the Rings sets might be worth something. But I'm going to open and play with it now. So
What can you do? Well, is there anything you want, other collectors to know of like what you're looking for or things you're looking to, sell or unload that people might be interested in?
I mean, nothing that I'm really, looking to offload. Like I said, most people, frequent me on the Facebook page for the Star Wars CCG groups. Sometimes I'll just throw some stuff out there randomly. Like I said, I'll get into a mood where, 3-4 months straight, I'll try to flip a bunch of stuff. I've got stuff on my eBay store. I'm still, quietly, slowly adding stuff and selling stuff as it goes through and just kind of moving. Like I said, there's a few master cards I still need to complete on a few things. Probably like
What
maybe
are your
10 cards.
elusive? What are the most elusive things you're looking for?
Oh, I mean, they're pretty minimal. The big things are actually a couple of Endor rares that I really just want like mint versions of because if everybody knows the Endor cards were just packaged so poorly that you could open fresh packs and you still get that white lines on them. They could still be mint, but they got that white line on them. And it's just enough that it drives me nuts because when you put them in those nice pro binder sleeves and it's all black behind it, but you can see that one little white strip.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so trying to find some mint Endor rares to finish off a couple of things. That's pretty much about it. And I still need a corrected was it R3PO, right? The errated version sealed in pack. I'd like to get one of those. I mean, I've been watching on eBay. I'm like, today's $30, $40, $50. I'm just kind of like, I'd rather
Crazy.
just trade for it than have to do it. So, but I'd like to
30,
get a sealed
40
one.
bucks for that is too high. I think most of the time I think I bought a few. I think I got them for like $9, $10.
Yeah,
And
that's
even
it. You
that
just got to
was
watch it. So, but I'm like, I could trade people. I got so many extras and doubles. It's like I had even trade somebody probably a whiteboard or Darth Vader premiere for it if it was still sealed, right? It's like, it's $20. Here's one. So,
all
but yeah.
right. Well, Derek, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on and sharing your love of Star Wars. This has been a great chat. I can't wait to share this with everyone. And look forward to chatting with you more in the future.
All right. Well, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate having me on.